Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Keeping Fraud Down When Business Ramps Up. Thank you for taking this time to join us this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Hi, I'm Judy Howard with our Customer Experience and Operations, and I'm excited to introduce my colleague, Cornelius Hatting, who's Arts Director of Revenue Integrity, and he, with our partners at Perseus, have created this informative and dynamic session that I think you'll all find has valuable insights. Cornelius leads our team of experts who provides fraud, compliance, and risk mitigation solutions for travel agencies and airlines. He and his team are kept very busy, especially these days. And joining Cornelius as our guest presenter is Votar Opai, who is the head of business development at Perseus, leading that team along with marketing to its global member portfolio to prevent fraud. He also is responsible for Perseus' global business development strategy and operations. Needless to say, he is kept very busy. But before we get started and I turn it over to our presenters, there's just a few housekeeping that I want to go over. Everyone will be muted during the presentation. We want this to be engaging, interactive, and we want you to get out of this everything that you want and get all your questions answered. So throughout the presentation, we will be periodically answering your questions. So go to your control panel, type in all your questions, and we will try to get to most of those. And the ones that we don't, we will get answered after the session ends today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Votar to get started, and Cornelius as well.
Well, obviously, thanks a lot, Judith, for the nice introduction. And I will be presenting today on behalf of Perseus. We're based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and looking forward to today's session. Today, the agenda for this webinar is as following. I will first start quickly introduce Perseus as a company. Then I will give the word to Cornelius, and he will talk you through the current state of the industry. We will continue with the main topic of today's webinar, obviously reducing risk, keeping fraud down when business ramps up. And we will follow with performing a live exercise of the ARC risk check, which can be used for free for the next few months to test and become familiar with. I hope that's clear for everyone. So about Perseus. Well, basically, as a company that helps the travel industry already for 10 years, we are continuously looking for new methods to help travel merchants fight fraud and obviously their related costs. And at this moment in time, it is important to provide travel merchants the opportunity to check their transactions for fraud, preventing travel agents from fraud cost in already very difficult times. In the COVID-19 era. But let me explain some about Perseus first. Perseus is a global database of fraud helping the travel industry with over 140 merchants such as airlines, online travel agents, and travel agents. And with over 140 merchants, we try to combat fraud for now already over 10 years. So basically, 12 years ago, Perseus was established with a cooperation with IATA, the Association for International Air Travel, to build a secure platform for airlines to share confirmed fraud data and work on cooperation amongst airlines. And soon, Perseus became a sophisticated platform where now hundreds of airlines and travel agents are uploading their fraud data. So the uploaded fraud data by our community members allows us as Perseus to enrich merchants with additional information to let them better decide if they are dealing with fraudulent or with legitimate customers. And hence, obviously, to accept, to block, or maybe to even manually investigate the transaction with all the information that we have at our disposal. Our mission is to enable real-time access to cross-border fraud data through community-based data sharing between stakeholders in the commercial, the payments, and fraud industry. By sharing data, merchants can prevent the considerable cost related to fraud. So that's a brief introduction of Perseus. For now, I will give the word to Cornelius with a brief introduction about the state of the industry.
Yeah, thank you, Wouter. And Judy, again, thank you for that introduction. Just sort of to lead on from what Wouter said there about collaboration within the travel industry and sharing information, of course, ARC is a contributor to that database. We load weekly data into the Perseus data environment based on fraud trends and fraud reports that we get in. The same information we share out to the agency community as well through via our fraud alerts. So if you guys are getting that, you know, we're happy to share that information with you, but you can also get firsthand the data directly from the Perseus environment as well, and so definitely a valuable tool for us, and definitely a value for us by loading data into it as well. So I just really wanted to quickly go over some statistics that ARC has been putting together during the COVID period and sort of see what the state of the industry is. And this is mainly data that's hosted on our Travel Recovery Insights portal. ARC data, together with some of our industry partners, are being positioned here, and it gives us a good insight to see the trends and developments within the travel sector as the industry adapts to the new normal. It provides a great insights into ticket trends, recovery trends, geographical metrics that you can drill down into and sort of see how other countries are ramping up post-COVID, or at least the first wave, how domestic travel is opening up and so on. Definitely gives some good insights into consumer sentiment and airline capacity, and how the airlines are dealing with social distancing and so forth. And in the following slide, it sort of tells the trends, or the story rather, about the COVID journey and how that has been sort of nosedived and hitting rock bottom here in end of March, and then sort of plateauing out through the following months at very low levels, and then industry numbers, that is, and then after which we start to see the slow initial recovery, what was sort of in the past 9 weeks or so, of how the industry is recovering, domestic travel is coming back online, etc. But again, great data that can support good insights to you and your business. But hopefully the trend will continue upwards. Of course, there are talks in the news of the potential second wave, etc. So again, this will be a good environment to start looking at and start planning accordingly, so that we're ready for that next round, if it should come. If we move on to the next slide there, please. This is also just another example of the type of data that you will find in the portal. And it gives you some examples of how we are monitoring the current state of the industry, and provides weekly updates that gets shared out either on the website. You can also track it in LinkedIn. There's always posts there on the same data. And it breaks out the industry into three major sectors, being corporate travel, online, and leisure. So there's some good statistics there as to how each one of those environments are recovering, or leading recovery rather. As mentioned, you can drill down into the data per region and to get greater insights into the recovery per each market, and that data is provided on a year-over-year trend, week over week, etc. So again, a great resource there for travel agencies and airlines to utilize, help with projections, help with planning, and help with the recovery post-COVID. As we move into our next slide, please, Wouter. This is our fraud data, and here we really are looking at the impact that we identified in fraud early on in the year. Of course, the decline in fraud naturally mirrors the ticket decline that we've seen, but it's been pretty flat, and I think some of our fraud analysts were very happy about it for a while because there was a bit less to do than usual. But I got complaints that they were bored. So I think as we can see in the second slide, there is definitely a ramp up in fraud as we are projecting out of the curve here. And our analysts are being kept busy as of recent weeks, and they are very happy about being busy. But we can see definitely that the spike versus the spike in our fraud transactions are spiking compared to our fraud alerts. So there's definitely activity happening in the fraud side of things, and we see that obviously picking up mainly out of the West African regions and also Asia Pacific. So we're continuously keeping an eye on this. Obviously sending out our fraud alerts to continue to do that to our industry partners. The airlines are receiving those from us, and so are the agents. But I'll let Wouter take over from here and give you some further insights, and also give you some overview of the tool that we've been talking about. All right, thanks, Wouter.
Yes, thank you, Cornelius. And maybe a quick note, I already noticed in the chat that there was a question about will these slides be shared, and that will be the case. So I can imagine there was a lot of data and insights, but you will have the time after to look into that more into detail. So for now, let's continue with fraud impacts, trends, and forecasts. Well, we would like to kick off with a poll question first. So if the poll question can start here, please.
Yeah, thank you, Wouter. The poll is up. If people can select their answers. Judy, I'm not seeing the percentage completion. If you can see it.
Yep, I can, and I'm just waiting for it to get up a little bit. We're like at 65%. So if everyone could take the time to just kind of weigh in, we'll see if we can get a few more, and then Cornelius and Wouter, I'll close it so you can get the results. Okay, we're up to about 73, couple more, 70. Okay, I'm going to close it now, and then I'll share.
Okay, results are in. So Wouter, so the results that we got here is for the answer where people are selecting 1 as the answer, it's 4%. Where folks are selecting 3, it's 18%, 12, 28%, 29, 25%, and 44, 25%. Yeah, so a great selection there, and everybody is sort of across the board. So yeah, over to you, Wouter.
All right, so let's see what is the winning answer. So the answer is 29 new tickets as a travel agent to recover from a chargeback, which is obviously a massive number. And obviously also explains a little bit why we are sitting here, because it can have a lot of impact on your business. So why this high? Well, basically when a chargeback comes in, you will not only lose the travel agent fee, you will not earn, but you're also liable for many more associated costs, such as a chargeback fee from the bank, a transaction fee from the payment processor. But you also should take into consideration costs such as missed recurring income, but also marketing as well, acquisition costs, and also loss of the ticket price itself, and so on and so on. So it's not just the cost that you would take into consideration at first start, but there is so much more that you should take into consideration when a fraudster is harming your business and you will receive a chargeback, it can cost you so much money. So you should be prepared for that. Basically what we say is, yeah, in the end, many more costs are associated to fraud costs than you could imagine. So better be prepared to prevent these costs before it is too late. A small note, though. Yeah, go ahead, Cornelius.
Yeah, sorry, Wouter. Yeah, I think it's always better to prevent than to cure in this regard. So if there's any way that the agency can prevent the fraud from going into the systems, be it on their own merchant, be it on the airline merchant, or any other third-party merchant, of course, that avoidance of cost is going to be key there, and that's where ARC risk check comes into play, is because you'll be able to identify within the community which actors have are driving chargebacks and who those people are and what sort of activities they are attempting. Of course, there will be always the first report out that will take the hit, but for the others, they'll be benefiting from it. And it's good to check in the ARC risk check tool to see that and hopefully prevent that chargeback from coming back to you if it was identified as a negative transaction. And of course, that is again what ARC is also trying to do and drive with our alerts, mainly manned by Christine. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have received an email from her at least at one point in time, and that's really to help you drive down that back end cost and so forth. So
yeah, completely correct. Completely correct. And obviously, we will move towards the ARC risk check a little bit later. But indeed, that is the foundation of our platform. It's about cooperation amongst merchants in the travel industry, uploading confirmed fraud data and hence preventing fraud to occur for another merchant in the industry. However, I need to make a small note. These calculations are on chargeback with fraud reason code, and they're not related per se to the canceled travel, which is a large problem in the travel industry at this moment of time in the COVID era. So that's a small note. Now we know how large the threat of a chargeback is. Maybe let's focus on another topic, finding out on what is coming to prepare for your business to ramp up again. And so let's find out what is your view on this matter and what are your expectations when we will be back pre-COVID time in terms of travel. So we have another poll for you.
Yep, and it's up.
Great. And again, as we had said on the last one, please, if everyone could take the time to weigh in, that would be great. Now, Cornelius and Wouter, I'll keep this open for just a few more seconds.
Great.
We have almost 50%, almost 60% of you have voted. So this is really helpful. Thank you, everyone. Oh, wow, we're up to, I'm going to keep it open a little more because it keeps coming in. We're almost up to 80%.
Fantastic.
We're glad that you're all paying attention. That's awesome. Okay. We're about at 83%. I'm going to close that now so that Cornelius and Wouter can go over the results.
All right. Okay, we got the results. Okay, so when will travel return to pre-COVID-19 levels? Late this year, 16% of you have selected that. Next summer, 23% selected that option. The end of 2021, 55% have selected that. And then never, 6% are thinking that to be the case. So let's hear what you have to say on that, Wouter.
Yes, well, interesting results. So let's go to the next slide. But definitely what is interesting to share with you, as Cornelius shared with you already some insights from our perspective, what we could say from Persays perspective, having merchants from all over the globe and tracking what is the volume of the transactions, what we can explain to you is our data tells that transactions are increasing again. 40% increase of transactions in July compared to June. So that's very positive. However, I should also state that the data also tells that there is an overall decrease, obviously, in travel from July 2019 compared to July 2020, which has dropped with 56%. So the increase of June over compared to July, you should see this into perspective, obviously. But that's some insights from our end. And as we might not know when travel will be back at the same level, we do not have the clear facts for you, unfortunately. It's also about sharing knowledge amongst each other and have this conversation to make sure you have the right feeling about, okay, what's coming up. We do know we need to protect our business again, because losses can harm our business even harder due to the lower sales volumes that we all have. Because also, because also ARC and Perseus cannot provide you with facts when travel will be back, it would be at least good with you to share what our team at the Perseus office received back as feedback from our community members around the globe, such as the airlines and OTAs, and I will be happy to share those insights with you. So first point is domestic travel is expected to recover first. This basically speaks for itself. People tend to travel close to home due to restrictions to go abroad, but also fear of new lockdowns and so on. The second point, and obviously Cornelius, if you have some additional information, feel free to interrupt. The second point, new ways of online communication may decrease need for business travel. Well, obviously a good example is today's webinar, which saves us all a lot of traveling, especially me, because I'm not in the United States, together and discuss this topic. Business will make better considerations whether or not expensive business trips will be needed in the future. So this is most probably a trend that our community members expect. The third topic that I want to share with you, or the insight, is mindful travel versus mass travel. And what do I mean with this? Well, basically ask yourselves, what would you like to offer to your customers? Because historically busy city trips with many people close to each other were very popular. But is this what you should offer to your audience in this moment of time? Or should you focus more on mindful locations with peace of mind and secured social distancing? Well, our community members recommend to focus more compared to the past on the latter. So focus also on offering mindful options to your customers. Well, we spoke about it a little bit already, but the question that comes up every time is, when will travelers be confident enough to start traveling? Well, my vision here, or what I should, my takeaway, let's say, is regularly check the statistics provided on the internet, on ARC, maybe even Perseus, check your LinkedIn of your peers, be in contact with your peers, but also ask your friends and family about their vision on this matter, because that's basically the target group in the end. When do they feel comfortable again to travel? And try to adjust your, let's say, business towards that. Then the next one. Go ahead.
So Wouter, on that point, I think it's also going to be very much up to the businesses themselves, right? So everybody have a different risk tolerance and different requirements per state and so forth. So everybody will adapt and build that on their business travel as they see fit, but and where it's necessary. So it's going to be an interesting time to see how people and businesses adjust to the new normal. going forward.
Indeed. Yeah, going to the next topic. Uncertainty where to travel can also be partially solved with technologies. For instance, an example that I want to share with you, a large OTA customer of Perseus is now implementing smart filters to basically filter out, let's say, dangerous regions based on government travel advices. So they will not offer to their customers locations that are recommended not to travel to. So technology nowadays also offers quite a lot of options to help you in here. And obviously don't be afraid to also check maybe the larger airlines or the larger online travel agents and copy some of the tactics they implement to your own businesses.
And again, that helpful resource, that ARC's resources are also available there to help identifying trends, what I mentioned earlier. So in line with what the OTAs are doing, you know, ARC is providing similar data points as well. So, you know, check that, and hopefully it helps you plan your recovery as a travel agent or airline.
Definitely. Well, the last point, very obvious, but obviously new hygienic expectations and standards while traveling. Make your customers aware of all the rules and measures taking place in the different regions, but also there's reduced personal contact, enhanced sanitization, temperature checks, and social distancing. Make sure that you prepare your customers well. So moving towards the next slide. So based on
Wouter, if you don't mind, I just want to get people to feel free to ask questions. We don't have many questions in at the moment, so we're happy to take some questions once we have a good number of them in. So please feel free to ask those questions, type them into us. We're ready to respond to them as we move through the presentation. We will also, just before we do the demo, have a pause as well to go through any questions. And of course, after the webinar, we'll be looking at those questions again. So do feel free to start putting in your questions if you have any. It's always nice to get those questions in. It helps us to engage with you and you know, sort of help address some of the concerns you might have as best we can. All right, thank you.
Definitely. So feel free to also ask questions about the next trends that I'm about to. So again, well, based on the feedback with our close contacts in the fraud as well as the payments industry, we also wanted to share the following with you. So there will be an increase of contactless payments and use of mobile wallets, according to our Perseus community members. Good to take into consideration. There will be a further shift from card present toward card not present payments, which is also increasing potential credit card risk, which you should take into your consideration to protect your business. So the next one, fraudsters are not sleeping. Well, Cornelius also knows everything about this matter. Any crisis presents an opportunity to criminals to harm your business. So that's why we are providing this webinar. Be prepared even in times you don't expect it. It will even hit you harder in these times when your business is hit hard.
Yeah, Wouter, just to add there, I think we did a webinar earlier this year, sort of just as COVID started building up and affecting more and more states and countries, with our colleagues at Gemini, and they were identifying at that point in time in the dark web that selling compromised card data, there's been a lull in that, but they were also expecting a big surge in the coming months at that point in people buying up card data and sort of putting it on the shelf and waiting for the recovery to come through. And then once that recovery is coming in, then pull those cards out and start using them. So I think most industries are sort of needing to brace themselves for what might come, especially in the card not present environment. Again, we're not dealing directly with the customer, so the point of sale is vulnerable. And it's also nowadays getting more and more difficult to validate, especially online, that the card information that you're taking in is legitimate and is linked to the actual person who is putting in that request. So definitely time to get prepared and be ready for that fraud that might come in. And the age-old saying, if it looks too good to be true, it is. So if you get a sudden spike in high volume transactions and high value transactions to markets you don't normally serve, feel free to reach out to us. We might have insights on that. Do a check on Perseus, and go from there. But I think as eager as we all are for the industry to recover and our businesses to start thriving again, we need to be conscious of what might come and hurt us even more in recent events.
Yes, thanks, indeed. Another takeaway from our customers is changes in booking behavior, which makes it even harder to identify if customers are genuine or if they're fraudulent. So, for instance, more tickets are reserved very close to departure dates, which was before post-COVID, pre-COVID, I'm sorry, was very much likely to be a fraudster, but now appears to way more being a trend also for genuine customers. Another trend we see is the high number of single tickets. So no return tickets, but just booking a single ticket. So also take this into consideration, maybe when you have your own business rules or fraud rules to monitor fraud. This is one of the key takeaways. There are obviously many more trends in booking behavior we've heard, but those are the main changes we received back from our community. So also in the travel industry, refund and chargeback problems obviously persist. So this is because of canceled travels. Then we have the problem of the rise of friendly fraud. Well, same like the pre-COVID era, friendly fraud is also continue to rise. So keep your eyes on that as well. And in the end, what we hear back mostly from our community members all over the globe is that there is a lack of staff in the travel industry, which sounds familiar most probably to some of you, which makes it harder to basically review suspicious bookings. There's a larger need for tools that facilitate in checking suspicious transactions more effectively, but also to gain trust in decision making, and in the end to obviously to save fraud costs. So that's it for this list. Anything to add, Cornelius?
No, I don't have anything else to add there, but definitely good insights, and I think definitely things we need to be conscientious about as things recover. We've got a couple of questions in at this point, so let's go through one or two of those. We got one in here asking about what is friendly fraud.
Well, Cornelius, if you could share your insights on that.
Right. So, I mean, normally what we refer to as friendly fraud is really the card holder, legitimate card holder, having made a purchase and then a day later also regretting that purchase, then going into the bank and disputing that transaction, claiming it was fraud, or it wasn't them who made the transaction. That then is described as friendly fraud. Of course, it's still fraud, but because it's the original card holder, the term is friendly fraud. And then another one I have here is, and Wouter, this might be one for you. Is there an option or link that can be used by travel agencies to verify credit card not present?
Credit card not present. Well, obviously you can, but we go to this tool later. Obviously, the ARC risk check. So even when you have card, we're talking about card not present or present. I'm sorry. Cornelius?
How can you? Is there a tool or link or options available to travel agencies where they can actually verify that a credit card is a not present card? So I think maybe the term on card not present transactions need to be defined in this, and that it's normally related to virtual or e-commerce type transactions, and I don't know if there's any solution to identify if it's just ticket numbers being, card numbers being entered without a valid card being present. I mean, if the original questioner could rephrase that question, maybe we can revisit it and get back to it.
Indeed, like maybe I misunderstood the question, but so far I understood not a direct link that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Is there another question, Cornelius?
Yeah, we have one more, and we can quickly take that. And what can be done in a case of a passenger having flown and later disputing the charge back? So they've flown, they then returned, I take it, and then they issue a chargeback on their travel. Ideally, there should be social media content available. If you have the passenger's name that might identify them having taken a flight, having gone to the destination they would tended to go. You can then use that as part of your representment to the bank to fight that chargeback. And in some cases, you can also, depending on the airline, request the airline to confirm or provide evidence that they did fly on that flight, and then use that as well as to combat your chargeback. So let's move on, and then the next all the other questions that are coming in now we'll tackle at the end of the session. So please keep on going. Thank you for the questions that you've asked already, but please keep them coming.
Great, thanks, Cornelius. So at the last part of the webinar, we will now focus more on the solution of fighting fraud, a quick intro on what fraud data sharing means, and move onwards with a live exercise. So basically, as Perseus, we work as following. So after a confirmed fraud case, a travel merchant uploads its fraud case, such as, or I should say, should upload its fraud data, such as the IP address, the email address, the passenger name, and phone number into our secured platform. And usually the larger merchants, the larger online travel agents and airlines can do this automatically. So we receive a lot of confirmed fraud from those merchants in the travel industry. And what we do is we apply certain algorithms, AI, on this data, which is confirmed fraud in our fraud database. And for every check on a new transaction, we provide a score based on confirmed fraud data, transactions data, time-based data, but also external data sources and the combination of all data elements in order to generate a score for our merchants. So to leave it with this is the Perseus data sharing model in a nutshell. Now let's move onwards towards the actual risk tool and show you an exercise. What is good for you to understand first is, well, basically, together with ARC, we developed the ARC risk check, obviously. And this was because we found that there was no tool in the market for small and mid-sized travel agents to tap into confirmed fraud data in their fraud screening. And what we will now be doing is showing the ARC risk check. Well, this is the manual check version for small and mid-sized travel agents. Easy to use, clear and transparent user interface, and able to make quick decisions for you, or help you make the final decision, obviously, but give the right recommendations. But what is good to highlight, as we also have Airlines in the webinar, that we also have a direct API option for automated checks. And this is mainly for travel companies with larger volumes. And here you will receive real-time results. It's an effective fraud screening tool. There is no manual entry needed. And here there's also a trial period with advanced support provided. And obviously, if you're interested in this option, feel free to reach out to me or to Cornelius to discover more on this solution. So now let's move onwards to the live exercise. And I need to.
So Wouter, as you are doing that shift around, I think, and you did mention it, yeah, is that this on the API side is going to be automatic. There's no need to fill it in, but your result and your final dashboard as to how the results presented is is going to be the same. So is going through this exercise is still relevant to understand how the tool operates, and also how to assess the results. Will still add value to you even if you are considering an API. So it's all relevant and all sitting on the same back end, basically.
Indeed. So it's important to understand that obviously it's hard to show you an API of our solution. So it all in the end works the same. It's a check, but the best way is to show you the manual version. And good for you to understand is obviously even as a smaller or a mid-sized travel agent, you always tap into the same Perseus confirmed fraud data that the larger online travel agents and airlines are benefiting from as well. So I hope everyone is able to see the homepage of the ARC risk check. And let's start with the live exercise. So what I did, I prepared for you 3 different demo examples to give you a good overview on how the tool works. Obviously, the aim of the ARC risk check is to provide you with scoring and a recommendation based on the confirmed fraud data in the platform on what to do with a suspicious transaction. So let's check. Well, on the homepage, you will directly see the check transaction function. So what is important for you to understand is that the main data elements we score on are the name, the phone, the email address, and the IP address. In our algorithms generating scores for you and recommendations, those are most important for scoring your transactions. Also important for you to know is only the name and the phone as data fields are mandatory to fill out and make use of the ARC risk check. But obviously, the more data you fill out, the more information we can utilize and generate scores on. So about the scoring range, also important for you to understand, is we have a scoring between -100 and 100. And all scores generated between 0 and 100 mean we think you're dealing with a genuine customer. And we can calculate this because we have seen the data before. All airlines, large travel agents do check all their transactions against our database. So we also have information about all transactional data, basically. But we can generate a score because a certain data element has never been uploaded as confirmed fraud Perseus, we have seen it multiple times, so we're able to generate a score that you're dealing with a genuine customer. So let's go to the fraud part. All scores between 0 and -100 mean we have seen this data as confirmed fraud before in the past. So this is uploaded as confirmed fraud by our community. And so we score a minus score on fraud. So let's start with a first example, which I already pre-filled. What I did in the homepage at the check transaction section, I pre-filled a name, a phone number, an email address, and an IP address. And what is important, to click the check transaction button and the next page will load. So most important of the results page is obviously the score that we generate, which you will see here on the left corner. In this case, -99, very high risk. What we also do is we provide you with some explanation on the scoring. In this case, and I hope you can see it and it's not too small, but I will read it out loud. This transaction is very high risk and most likely a fraudulent transaction. This score is based on reported fraud cases in the Perseus community. Due to very high risk, we advise you to or offer an alternative payment method without fraud risk or to cancel the transaction. What we can see about the data elements is obviously they're associated with red, so all data fields generate a risk score. If we go to the right-hand side, these sections of the data elements, we're able to provide you the calculation of the scoring per section, but we also provide you with the information. Why do we actually score this number for you on this transaction you check against the ARC risk check? So we obviously also provide some extra information. So how many fraud cases has been uploaded, for instance. In the email section, we also provide information about the domain, how many times has it been uploaded, so on, so on. For the IP address, we will do the same, but we'll also provide information, for instance, about Perseus saw the IP address in the check for the first time 54 months ago, which is also an indication. The IP address is from France and registered with the name and then company name. We will give you information about, for instance, is this a shared IP or not? For the passenger name, we also provide information if we can. So have we seen this name uploaded as fraud? So this is the basics of the outcome of a check, of a transaction. But we obviously have some more examples prepared for you. So obviously you do not want to check just one transaction. And you have the option to do check risk details. And what I did is you will land on this specific page and you're able to fill out some more data elements. In this case, I pre-filled the email address, the passenger first name, the passenger last name, the billing phone number, and the IP address. And as you can see, you're able to fill out some more data elements if you have those at your disposal, obviously. So let's do another check. So the outcome of this check is the following. We have a score of 50, which explains that this is moderately trustworthy. And why is that? And what is the advice we provide? So this transaction is indicated to be moderately trustworthy. This means that multiple elements of this transaction have been seen before by the Perseus community without any fraud being reported. Due to this trustworthiness, we advise you to, in this case, accept the transaction if there are more positive indicators. So what you will see here is obviously the data elements will turn green because they're associated with a genuine transaction. And basically we will provide the same type of information at all sections of the data elements on the right-hand side, and explain why we provide a certain scoring with extra information on the data. So for instance, how many times did this data element, or has this data element been checked against the Perseus database? Well, in this case, 10 times, but how many fraud cases have been uploaded with this specific email address? 0 cases, and that's how we are able to calculate such a scoring. And obviously we will do the same for the IP address in this case, the billing phone number, and the passenger name. And obviously we have a last example for you. So then again, go to the check risk details. But what I did, I obviously pre-filled another example here for you again. Again, with the email address, the passenger first name, last name, as well the IP address. And we do another check on the transaction. And here what happens is a little bit strange. So it basically provides you with a -51 high risk score, with the recommendation to cancel the transaction. But what can happen, obviously, is that you're not completely certain about the scoring, because maybe, for instance, the email address is associated with fraud, but the IP address, for instance, is associated with a genuine customer. And this makes you hesitate about what to do with this specific transaction. So obviously we provide some more information on the right-hand side, but in case you're hesitating, we have the option to ask the fraud team of ARC on their opinion on this transaction, which basically means you click on Get Help. We pre-fill all the data that you already filled out by clicking or checking the transaction. Apologies. We encourage you, if possible, to fill out as many data elements in this section, and then you're able to contact the expert, and someone within ARC will receive a notification and will reach out to you in order to make a decision together. So this was the last example. Let me quickly show the sections. So we obviously, at the home page, the check risk details, the contact expert feature that we just showed. If you know that you have a chargeback confirmed fraud, you're also able to report a chargeback and help the airline industry. We have a bin search option, a settings option, where you can also, for instance, fill out some privacy sections, such as a 2-factor authentication to log in, for instance. Subscription plans. We have a documentation part, which provides you with some more information about how to use the tool. What does the scores that will be generated exactly mean? And obviously the option to log off. So that is the ARC risk check as a live exercise. What I will do is I will go back to the slide deck.
Yeah.
And basically, yes.
Go ahead.
To add support. Yeah, I can go ahead. Thanks. Again, I hope the live demo was clear for everyone. And obviously, we're happy to help you whenever needed in these difficult times, and to prepare for when business ramps up again. We are more than happy to offer 2 months of free access after registration. It's an easy enrollment. We will show the link later. And obviously, it's supported by ARC as well. We will provide you the support whenever needed. Some final key reasons to start trying out with the ARC risk check. Start gaining confidence in decision making with extra information at your disposal. Grow your business, process more good transactions, and obviously save money. Do not let the fraudsters harm your business. See fewer chargebacks and false positives. So thank you everyone for allowing me to present the ARC risk check tool. We as Perseus, definitely encourage you to try out and to prepare for when business gets back to normal times, hopefully sooner than later. I think now the word is to Cornelius to wrap up and see if we have some final questions from the audience.
Yeah, Voter, yeah, thanks for that. A lot of questions, a lot of great questions. A quick one that sort of repeated itself during the session is there's a lot of concern about the IP address. IP address is totally optional. There are tools available on Google and other websites where you can do a reverse lookup on the email address that could give you an IP address that could be supported in this, but depending on how much time you want to spend on it, etc., it's up to you. Of course, more information we get in the system, the better. However, if you don't have that IP address, don't worry about it. The tool can still pull on the other mandatory fields being name and phone number. Anything else to add there, Voter?
No, nothing to add. So again, what we always explain is we encourage you, if you have data at your disposal, which is more than the passenger name and the email address or the phone number, I'm sorry, we encourage you to fill out because it will help us to generate scores. But the IP address indeed is not mandatory in filling out the ARC risk check, transaction check, basically.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and wrap a couple of questions into one answer. I'm going to try that. The sign up is going to be available on the arccorp.com website. It's going to be under products, and you can then select ARC risk check and do your sign up there. It'll automatically take you through to a Perseus page. Fill out your information there, and you'll be confirmed by ARC as being a registered agent airline, and you will be given the access. The pricing is also on our website, so if you're interested in that as well, you'll be able to see it on our website. For users who want to have more than one person have access to the tool, there are options to that. I think in the free trial, I don't know how many people can have free access from a single company, Voter. I don't think we've discussed that. I don't know if you have an answer to that.
No, to be honest, I do not have a direct answer to that, but we are very flexible in that, obviously to a certain degree. But don't you worry on that matter, especially for the up to the 31st of August when we offer the 2 months free trial, let's say.
And one other question that we had in was if the score comes in 90% negative, is that a guaranteed response? And the answer to that is no. There's no guarantee, as the data that is there is built on the input from the community. And ultimately, it's up to the travel agency or the airline to make a risk-based decision on whether or not they want to accept the risk as associated with a 90% score, negative score, or not. And therefore, that's not a guaranteed transaction if you, for some reason, not go with it, and it turns out to be a good one. But yeah, unfortunately, there's no guarantee there. Yes, so as we coming to an end, thank you very much for all the questions that came in. We will definitely get to them after the webinar and respond to each one of those as they came in. We unfortunately ran out of time, but thank you for the continuous flow of questions. Very helpful, and I hope I managed to incorporate a lot of the answers on some of those questions that came in. Again, any future questions or any other interest that you might have here, feel free to email me. My email is here on the screen right now to get over voters. Again, this presentation will be shared out, so you'll have our information there as well. But in case you want to get to us quicker, it's all there. Another way to reach ARC is through stopfraud@arccorp.com, or if you suspect fraud within your system, feel free to send us an email. We can look into it. We've got access to a lot of data, so feel free to ask questions that way to us and the rest of our team via stopfraud@arccorp.com. Again, the resources we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, our Travel Recovery Insights portal looks at how the industry is doing there, and there's some couple of videos and additional insights that you can pull on there, together with how the recovery is faring during the COVID period. We've got additional fraud prevention training and so forth. So a lot of information there, a lot of information at our arccorp.com website as well. Additional webinars that you can go and look at, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, Judy, you have a couple of words that you want to add as well as we are over time, but I'll quickly hand over to you.
Great. Thank you, Cornelius, and thanks for wrapping that all up with all the contact information. That was great. I just want to give a great shout out and a warm thanks for and appreciation for Cornelius and Votar, you taking the time to be with us and share all this great information and insight this afternoon. And thank you for all of our attendees today. And as Cornelius was saying, the deck, the recording, and a little brief survey will be sent out later this afternoon, or depending where you are around the world, the morning, evening. And we really encourage you to take the time. It's just a few questions to fill that out, so that helps us in the future be able to craft sessions more to your needs. And so that our group can also reach out if there's some follow-up questions. As Cornelia stated, there are some other exciting webinars coming up. One of those will be Fraud Month that will be happening in September. That will be led by Cornelius and his team. There's always a lot of great information there. We also have a session next week for agents, which is COVID and trends and payments. That should be an interesting one. You should be getting invitations. If you don't, please reach out or go to our events area on our arccorp.com website. And that is going to be on Wednesday, July 29th. Again, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Cornelius. Thanks, Vodar. And thanks for all of you that connected with us today. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Vodar.
Thank you very much.